Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and thanks for swinging by the channel to check out the video. Always very grateful for that. Guys, today we're going to be talking about spring shaky head fishing. There's about a 3-week window in the springtime of the year, or sometimes even 4-week window, where the shaky head has got to be one of my favorite lures as far as for catching numbers of fish and even good ones. And we're coming up on that time frame right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over my favorite shaky head setup, give you some tips and advice on how to fish it and what type of areas to look for. I think it's going to add up to lots of fish for you guys over the next month. Also, guys, a quick invitation, if anyone is interested in becoming a channel member here of Intuitive Angling, that's a good way to support the channel along with our Patreon. All you have to do is go to my YouTube homepage, click the join button for information, and channel members get extra videos every week that aren't seen by the public. Usually stuff I don't talk about on the main channel, these little highly secretive stuff. So if you guys are interested, just check that out. Much appreciated. Okay, guys, shaky head, man. I'm going to say, there's no doubt over the past 25 years, when you get into mid-March to about the first or second week of May, shaky head, guys, is going to be one of your number one lures out there. I probably caught more bass in the mid-March to first part of May time period on a shaky head than about any lure out there. And you can catch good ones too. It's not just a little fish lure. There's something about a shaky head that the fish really like when they get close to that spawning mode. It's like their mood and their metabolism and their levels of aggressiveness and the things that they bite are really conducive to shaky head for some reason when they get ready to bed, or right after they're ready to bed. Okay, guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you my favorite shaky head setup, how I rig it, and then we're gonna go into a little bit more on this. So, first of all, your shaky head itself is really important. This is absolutely my favorite one. This is the Gamakatsu shaky head. I'll put this in the link of my tackle warehouse and the link in the description to this jig head if you guys would like to get some. But the number one thing, guys, is you've seen some shaky heads that's got the little screw lock things on it. Don't use those. The type of shaky head like this Gamakatsu where you thread it on with the keeper, the bait looks a lot more natural and you'll definitely hook a lot more fish. There's something about the wire, I don't like it. I miss a lot of fish on it. I don't think it makes the worm look natural. Most expert shaky head fishermen, including the best shaky head fisherman I ever knew, which was Aaron Martins, prefers this style of a shaky head here. So this is the one you want to use. Next one, guys, is my favorite worm. Out of all the worms out there, the Zoom trick worm is what I use 90% of the time. A lot of guys use a smaller finesse worm. I do too on rare occasion if it's super, super tough and the fish tend to be small where I'm fishing. But most of the time I'm using the Zoom trick worm. I find out in this time of year, I just get a ton of bites on it. Now, what I do with it, guys, is first of all, I'll bite off just a little bit, like maybe about an 1/8 inch off the head. That gives me a better thing to seat the head with, to seat the head of the shaky head. Come in the bottom, about 1/8 of an inch, like that. You don't want to come through much. You just want enough to where it sets in between the head and the keeper there. And thread it back on there, and when you pull it out, make sure your little keeper has got a good chunk of the worm in there so it doesn't come down. And then when you rig it back, guys, don't ever put it in just like this, where it's just sitting in the worm. You're gonna lose a bunch of fish because you got too much plastic to penetrate with spinning tackle. Take your hook and run it all the way through the worm where it comes out like that. And then if it's a clean bottom you're fishing, say for example, you're fishing a gravelly point or something, leave the hook exposed where the point's completely out of the worm like that. This is the way I prefer to fish it if I can get by with it on a cleaner bottom, because you just won't miss any fish. But if it's snaggy, just reverse it a little bit and just barely put the tip of that hook in the top of the worm. And that's how I rig it with that. Now I'm throwing it most of the time on that Mega Bass Roshi or the Levante Shaky Head Special. Usually I'm using 6 to 8 pound test Seaguard Vizex line. Don't like to go over 8. 8 is absolutely my favorite shaky head line. Another thing with it, guys, is this, and this is, if you can get anything out of this video, this is what you want to remember. This is that 1/16 of an ounce Gamakatsu shaky head. I use a 1/16 of an ounce anytime I can get by with it. Unless it's too windy or I'm fishing too deep, then I'll go to an 8. But if you go to a 1/16 of an ounce head, and shaky heads are not real common in a 1/16 of an ounce. That's why I like this Gamakatsu, is the fall of this bait is nice and slow. It's still deep enough it's still heavy enough to cover water. It's not like using a weightless worm, but it's heavy enough where it's got a nice slow glide and you can cover some good water with it with that. You getting ready for your, hey, come over here a second and show everybody your thing. Elijah and I are getting ready to go hiking. We're gonna go hiking on a mountain down at Table Rock Lake, and he's all dressed up here. You show him your outfit there?
Yeah.
Okay. We got that at the kids club last night, but anyway, we're getting ready to go there. Okay, so anyway, let's talk about where you want to fish this. The spring shaky head bite is all around, or the areas that you want to fish are all about the type of areas where the fish are going to spawn in. And you're not targeting spawning fish, but these fish are moving into those type of areas to get ready to spawn. And that's when they're really, that's really when they're really after the shaky head, is once you get into this type of a situation I'm talking about. First of all, once your water temperatures get about 55 degrees, usually about this time of year in mid-March, they're going to start moving up into these areas, and they're going to stay until May. And what you want to go into is go into your spawning coves. And say, for example, if you've got a nice spawning cove that's sort of flat in the back and fish tend to spawn in the back of that, start working the whole cove, because these fish, they come in off the main creek or the main lake into those spawning coves, and a lot of times they'll just stage in different parts of the cove, or they're just roaming through the cove looking for prime bedding areas. But what I like to do when that water temperature is under about 60 degrees, I'll get into those spawning coves and I simply back off a little bit deeper based upon the water clarity. If the water is really clear, like over 6 or 7 foot clarity, I may be backing off into 20 foot of water on those spawning cove banks out farther towards the mouth of the cove, out by the points. And as it gets closer to the spawn, I'm moving up, in less than 10 foot of water, unless the water's a little bit more off colored. But remember that before and after the fish actually start spawning, all you do is fish deeper in those same coves that they're spawning in. And this is a great way to catch them. It's a great way to catch numbers and size of fish, especially if you have a lake that's got some spotted bass in it. Spotted bass will tend to spawn a little bit deeper along with smallmouth. So if you're fishing for a lake that's got a mixed species of lake, excuse me, a mixed species of lake, make sure you probe down into like 20 foot of water, because I've seen spotted bass at Table Rock Lake spawning in 10, 15 foot of water when it's really clear out there. But just stay in those type of areas. It's not saying you can't catch them anywhere else, because you can catch them around like skipping under docks and in different parts of the lake, depending upon the type of lake you have. But if you stay in the spawning type areas, your odds of catching numbers and size of fish are gonna go way up with that. And you really just sort of have to determine the depth of the fish based upon everything around the situation, because one day they may be, 20 foot deep, the next day they may be 10, based upon the cloud cover and the wind or the stage that the fish are in. But eventually, but I guess to make it easier and simpler is like in the pre-spawn and the post-spawn, fish from about the point of the cove, about halfway back in, and then once those fish start to spawn, then you can move farther back in there and fish a little bit shallower for them with that. And remember, if you are fishing for spawning fish that are visible, guys, don't jack with them. Just, if you see one, just let it go by. And if you happen to catch one, make sure you release it. It's really important that time of year. And as far as working the bait, guys, it's just, you can't go wrong. Just keep working it slow. As long as you've got that bait on the bottom, dragging it or barely hopping it off the water, shaking it like a shaky head, you're going to be all right. But just don't get in a big hurry. Take your time, work nice and slow. This is the slow, methodical approach. And the reason it works so good is when those fish are in that mode to get ready to spawn or after they're spawning, I have found that they don't like to chase lures very good. That's why lures like crankbaits and spinner baits and chatterbaits, they don't work that good for me when those fish are really focused and locked in on that whole spawning mode. They like something that's on the bottom where they don't have to chase it. They tend to be bottom feeders more that time of year. So anyway, guys, can't go wrong with it, man. I'll put a link in the description again for my tackle warehouse stuff to get your setup with shaky head, all my favorite shaky head stuff. Get you a 16th ounce head, zoom trick worm, 8-pound test line. gets you a bunch of bites over the next month. So hope it helps. We'll see you guys.